Fauci's going to testify. There's going to be a lot of fireworks. They're talking about the origins of COVID, gain of function research. People want to see Dr. Anthony Fauci jailed. Everybody knows that he lied. The question is going to be asked, what is going to come of this? I mean, tomorrow, maybe even today during the afternoon show with Brian Wilson, but there's going to be great audio. You know, people going after Dr. Anthony Fauci. You lied about the gain of function research. You lied about funding it. You lied about the origins of COVID. You lied about the ramifications of the lockdowns. You lied about all of these things. Dr. Anthony Fauci, his ass ought to be in jail. You think anything's going to come of all of this? I guarantee you the audio is going to be great. And I could just play audio all day long tomorrow morning. Brian could play it this afternoon as well. But the big question is, to what end? I mean, when you look at everything that's been going on in the last couple of years, when it comes to the federal government, the Biden administration, of course, Fauci, by and large, a lot of this was taking place during the Trump administration. But when you look at the apparatus of the federal government, the lies, the deceit, more recently going after Donald Trump, 34 counts, guilty on all of those counts. When the most brilliant legal minds in America all believe and understand that that is bogus as well. There is no end to the lying and the deceit of our government. And it certainly didn't start with Dr. Anthony Fauci, and it is certainly not going to end with what is going on in New York with the hush money case. And who knows what's going to happen to former President Donald Trump. Got news on that today. I think part of the anger and part of the frustration of the American people, of you and of me, is that we see all of these hearings, all of this testimony, but nothing ever happens to the people who do it. And so as I sit here today and I'm thinking about, okay, well, what am I going to cover today? Certainly Dr. Anthony Fauci and his testimony is going to be a very big deal. Well, yeah, it is going to be a very big deal. But you know what? Ultimately, the question is going to be asked, to what end? What are you going to do? You're going to throw him in jail? What's going to change? Anything going to change out of Washington, D.C.? No. I don't believe anything's going to change. Do you? Anybody going to be held accountable? No. Then why do I bother to cover this stuff? Now, so far, the same committee has had others from Dr. Anthony Fauci's inner circle, and they've been talking about emails and the cover-up and how everybody thought when COVID first came about that, oh, my God, the gain of function research has escaped the Wuhan lab. Fauci's inner circle actually said that. And then Fauci, of course, knowing that he was funding the gain of function research through EcoHealth and these grants, realized immediately that he needed to lock down his own staff. He had to change everybody's mind one way or another and make sure that everybody was on the same page. No, this wasn't gain of function because we don't do that and we don't pay for that. This came from the wet market outside of the lab. Yeah, that's the ticket. That's what happened. And that was lie number one out of many lies that were told during COVID. Rand Paul was on with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend, and he was asked about a lot of this stuff. And part of that conversation was about Fauci's previous testimony, where he did lie about the funding for COVID and its origins.
You know, our investigation has confirmed that he did indeed lie. He committed a felony. He said that they did not fund, that the NIH did not fund gain of function, dangerous research in China. We now know that to be untrue. We know he committed a felony. But what we we've discovered now is that there was a massive cover-up from the very beginning. There was a behind-the-scenes effort to change the opinion of people. Many of the Fauci colleagues all believed that the virus did come from the lab. Their opinions were all changed, but then all evidence was then covered up.
Right. So all the emails were purged. They were erased. I mean, good Lord knows what they did. But remember, they came out and they said, yes, it came from the wet market. Then the whole bat soup thing, that was the joke. And they knew that they had to distract from the lab. So they, and I'm air quoting this, they changed everyone's mind. But here's the deal. They really didn't change everyone's mind. What they did was, from the bully pulpit, they basically threatened and cajoled everybody to get on the same page, whether they believed it or not.
They began using burner phones. They began using couriers. They said, we can't do things electronically. I can take things by hand to his house. It sounds more like the CIA than the NIH, but it's unbelievable the amount of things that went on. They say, oh, we're safe now. I've deleted all those emails. I think we're safe now. What in the world would they actually mean by we think we're safe now?
So not only did they lie about the COVID and its origins, but there is also, as you know, this massive cover-up. And anybody who had a dissenting opinion other than Fauci, they attempted to destroy their career. Their credibility was ruined. They went after all of these doctors who, previous to this, and biologists and all of these folks that had stellar reputations, and they destroyed them if they opposed what the great Dr. Anthony Fauci said. I know you've heard me talk about this a bazillion times. The Great Barrington Declaration came out famously saying these lockdowns of these children, this is the exact wrong thing to do. This is the exact wrong way to handle this. And those doctors were harassed. Fauci's goons and Fauci himself tried to discredit these doctors. And as we all now know, those doctors were absolutely right.
So there was a massive cover-up, and there's so many people that need to be interviewed. In addition to Fauci, we have David Behrens, who worked for him for 20 years. We have the FOIA lady, the woman at the IT woman at NIH, who was explaining to them how to avoid FOIA and how to break the law. She needs to be deposed. There's all kinds of stones that could be unturned, but ultimately the buck stops with Anthony Fauci. He's in charge of the place, and he has the responsibility not only for the cover-up, but also responsibility for letting dangerous research go on that led to a pandemic, in all likelihood led to a pandemic that killed millions of people.
All right, so now the big question is, should there be a prosecution of Dr. Anthony Fauci, at the very least for lying under oath? I mean, you could probably get him on all kinds of charges. But that question was posed to Rand Paul by Maria Bartiromo. Should Dr. Anthony Fauci be prosecuted? Dr. Anthony Fauci, he is going to be testifying today in front of, I guess it's a House subcommittee of something or another. And they're looking into the origins of COVID. Ultimately, I assume they'll look into the cover-up. And did they do everything correctly? The mask mandates and the lockdowns, was it all based on science, or was it based on, quite frankly, a cover-up? Now, most of what we know about the masks, what we originally were told, turned out not to be true. The, what was it? The distancing, 6 feet apart. Most people, or at least many people, have said that even that wasn't based on science. So there's a lot of questions that, you know, these lawmakers in the House, they have a lot of questions for Dr. Anthony Fauci. We could also talk about, you know, the social media companies, the mainstream media, how they participated in the cover-ups as well, when it was said that it was racist and conspiracy theories to say that COVID started in China, in the lab. That's another way that they tried to control the narrative. And we all knew almost instantly that the COVID lockdowns would cause major issues with the kids. And we're seeing that continue to play out even today. But it wasn't only just about the kids. It was about the locking down of our economy. You had lives that were ruined. You had careers that were ruined. You had the healthy were locked down when the healthy didn't need to be locked down. I mean, I could go on and on. How many times were we told that if you got the vaccine that you wouldn't get COVID? That also turned out to be a lie. I mean, we could go on and on and on with this. But again, the beginning of this monologue, the question that I asked, how much do I cover this whole nonsensical hearing in Washington, D.C., because nothing will come of it? So what's the point? It's a dog and pony show. I mean, we've seen the fireworks between Anthony Fauci and Rand Paul before. Now, Rand Paul, the senator, is not going to be grilling Anthony Fauci. This is coming out of the House. But the bottom line is we've seen all of this before. Now, there's some new information about the cover-ups and there's more investigation, but ultimately the question has got to be asked. To what end? Now, we'll perhaps learn how to not to deal with this next time, but that is assuming that actual mistakes were made. And I don't know if actual mistakes were made as opposed to a cover-up. There is a difference between making mistakes and actually covering up crimes. A mistake is, oh, okay, well, we screwed up. But the cover-up is we screwed up. We know we screwed up. We're not going to admit that we screwed up. As a matter of fact, what we're going to do is we're going to cover it up, and anyone who comes close to the truth, we're going to destroy. That's what they did. And so now the question is, should Dr. Anthony Fauci be prosecuted? That question was asked of Senator Rand Paul.
Do you believe if President Trump were to win, should there be a prosecution of Dr. Anthony Fauci?
What I'm asking President Trump, and what I hope he will offer, is access to all of the records. Right now, the NIH is withholding records. They're withholding records more so than the CIA or the FBI. They have completely withheld all records of the decision-making process on whether or not this research was dangerous or gain of function. So I hope Trump will open the books. I hope Trump will say, you can look at everything, and that my committee will be allowed to investigate this thoroughly because we've been hampered by the Biden administration. I think if he does that, he'll go a long way towards getting some voters who are still skeptical about the lockdowns and about the Trump administration's reaction to the virus, who want to see more strength and more opposition to the deep state within the public health administration.
And here's part of that. So you'll notice, by the way, that Fauci would not say, I should say Rand Paul would not say that Fauci needed to be prosecuted. Didn't say that. He's already mentioned that Fauci has lied under oath and he's committed perjury. He's already said that. And so now the question is, all right, well then if he did that, then shouldn't Fauci be prosecuted? Because we know that other people like Donald Trump have been prosecuted. So why not Dr. Anthony Fauci? I mean, inquiring minds want to know. And so now when something, and we've talked about this before, perhaps ad nauseum, but it's been a minute. So now that the American people, and you just heard Rand Paul say on Maria Bartiromo's show, now that the American people have been through COVID, we've been through the lies, we've been through the cover-up, we've been through the lockdowns, we've been through all of the impact, the negative impacts of the lockdowns. We've been through the threats regarding the vaccinations. We've been through all of that. So the next time something like this happens, what are the American people going to do? They're going to blow it off. You know why? Because we've been lied to by the government time and time and time again. And we know that coming out of Washington, D.C., literally everything is politicized. Everything. So whether we're talking about the origins of COVID, how the Wuhan lab in China had the funding from the NIH to do that gain of function research, to the lying about it, to the calling people like, me and a lot of you folks racist for questioning the origins of COVID, calling out the World Health Organization for not really sticking to a thorough investigation of what the heck happened, because the World Health Organization is run and controlled by China. I could go on and on and on. So you'll excuse me for being just a wee bit cynical about the big news today that Dr. Anthony Fauci is going to be testifying in front of, by and large, a lot of very skeptical Republicans. And so then the question is, okay, so they're really going to put the screws to Fauci. Are they really going to put the screws to Fauci? Or are they going to go for their sound bites and they're going to do whatever they can to get those sound bites played on the news and so on and so forth? And then Fauci walks away still a free man.